Hey, Autumn Athletes, Larry Sorensen here, and today I'm going to chat with Kelley Reinfelds to find out what makes her an Autumn Athlete that's not done yet. Before we get started, remember if you enjoy our content, please like, subscribe, and ding that bell for notifications, and also go visit automathletesndy.com. All right, enough of that. Kelley, thanks so much for joining us today. It's great to meet you. Why don't you kick us off with a little introduction?
Hi, Larry. Thanks so much for having me on. I love watching these things. It's nice to be a part of it. My name is Kelley Reinfelds, as you said. I am 48 years old. I live outside Chicago, a little suburb called Libertyville. I have four daughters, keeping us very, very busy. And I've been in Masters track and field for, gosh, 4, 5, 6 years now. Time's flying. But yeah, I live here. I work full time as well, in addition to being a mom in the dental industry. So I squeeze in stuff when I can.
So we're going to talk obviously more about track and field here in a minute, but
Mm-hmm.
first let's get a little bit of a history of your athletics. So
Mm-hmm.
tell us what you did maybe back in high school and young adulthood and so forth up until you got involved with Masters track and field.
Got it. All right. So I've just been really blessed. I feel like I've always been pretty athletic. I was always real quick as a little kid. I grew up on a farm in Iowa, so outdoors all the time, running around, jumping, throwing, catching. Small town, so we didn't really have a lot of like organized sports. I got to start town ball, as they call it, in fourth grade, and then added on through my junior high school volleyball, then basketball, and then track. So by the time I was a freshman in high school, I was doing four sports. So we had four sport seasons in Iowa. So it was volleyball, basketball, track, softball, like just continuously all 4 years, all throughout high school. Absolutely loved it. I didn't know what people did if they didn't have practice to go to after school. I didn't understand how that worked, but really enjoyed it. Did not have any club sports. We just lived too far away from Iowa City, the big mecca, to even make the any club teams there. But then I went to University of Missouri, and I didn't even try to get an athletic scholarship, even though I had a lot of success in high school. All states in volleyball and track, all conference and basketball and all that. So, but I never really occurred to me I could get an athletic scholarship. I wanted to go the military route. My whole family had been military. My older sister got a full ride NROTC scholarship to Northwestern. So that was always what I wanted to do. And I ended up getting an NROTC scholarship to University of Missouri. So was down there, but I realized like I missed sports. I miss competing. I miss practice. I just love practice. And you just don't get that. So I actually tried to walk on the volleyball team, first of all. That did not go well. I showed up to practice and I wasn't even wearing the right shorts. I didn't know what club volleyball clothes were. So, and the coach was not too keen on it. But then I went and talked to actually the track coach, Natasha Kaiser Brown, who is, she went to Iowa State or had some Iowa connection. She had actually called me my freshman year and when I was at Mizzou. And I remember getting the phone call on my dorm phone, and she asked me, "Hey, we heard, you did real well and in the Iowa track and field team, would you like to walk on?" And I told her no, I was going to focus on ROTC. And 2 years later, I just kicked myself for, turning that down. But then I went and tried to walk on the team. And I showed up and they're like, "Can you hurdle?" I was like, "No." And they're like, "Well, if you could only hurdle, you'd be a great heptathlete. But we can't teach you to hurdle in 2 years." So they looked at me and they said, "Did you play softball?" I said, "Yeah, actually, I was a center fielder." And they're like, "Javelin." So they found me a softball. I threw the softball. That was my tryout. And they said, "Yeah." So I did the javelin and the hammer for Mizzou. Absolutely loved it. Didn't do those events in high school at all, but it ended up being really well. I had some great coaches there. So when that got done, then it was the real world. So the military, there a little bit of physical activity there. I was in the Marines. And so a lot of hiking and heavy lifting of all sorts of things, all sorts of fun activities. But then throughout my 20s, after I got out of the military, it was just beach volleyball when I could, a lot of softball, and then running, and then eventually CrossFit. So I found CrossFit, really love the intensity of those workouts as well. So that kind of led all the way up through having kids, had time for it when I can. And then I discovered Masters Track in 2021. So it was quite a journey, but really glad I found it.
So I just got to take a step back because um, beach volleyball, I spent many years in the, well, let's say 80s, 90s, 2000, early 2000s at
Mm-hmm.
North Ave Beach
Aha.
tournaments and playing. Did you play at North Ave?
No,
Or
I
where did
didn't.
you
I'm sorry
play?
to say. It's funny. I was living, I got out of the military, lived in Ohio for a bit, and then went to grad school at Ohio State. and of all the random places, I played more beach volleyball in Columbus, Ohio than it should be legal. Like 4 or 5 nights a week, I was playing like bar beach volleyball. It was so fun. And then I actually moved to California more, but then I was playing softball. And so when I finally moved to Chicago, I was, married at the time, and I was pregnant. And I'm like, I finally live in Chicago. I wanted to play 16-inch softball. I wanted to do beach volleyball at North Ave. Never did. So I missed out. Maybe they have masters volleyball there. I'll get into someday.
Oh, they definitely do.
All right. I'll have to give it a shot. I can play old lady volleyball, indoor volleyball. There's a club near here, and right in between being old lady volleyball, but the young volleyball, it's like kids that just got out of college, and I'm at a weird in between now. So I'll just stick back for a while.
Okay. All right. So now you got involved with Masters track and field. How has that been? Tell us about that experience. What events are you competing in? Mm-hmm. Have you, had any successes or failures? Tell us all about it.
Yeah, all of the above, right? It's interesting. I've loved watching track and field on TV. Like I've been a track geek forever, like Natasha Kaiser Brown, and back in the 80s, and Dan and Dave and all that. I follow the Olympics, and I finally got on Instagram in 2020. I'm really late to the party, but I started following track stuff, and somehow I found a post of Rachel Guest, who's the Masters track, and I immediately started just stalking her online, like, oh my gosh, there's Masters heptathletes. Like I didn't even know it was there. So I actually reached out to her randomly. She was so nice. We're actually, I'm glad to say I know her now, and she's always great. But I happened to be visiting Arizona for something, and she had a little track meet going on at the high school there. So that was my first Masters track meet, was April of 21. And I remember being like, well, my body remember how to do high jump. Like I have not done high jump in 20, and it's amazing the muscle memory. Like it came back. Not the heights, but at least the motions. Yeah. Same with shot put and discus. So I was super hooked. So that was in April of 21. Then I did the Masters Nationals that summer. So because Nationals was the first meet I went to, I thought all Masters meets would be that big and awesome. And then I realized that's it. That's the big hurrah. Yeah. So I decided to really focus on that. I'm just going to 1 or 2 big meets a year with 4 kids, and they are in peak just chaos mode right now. Like between my 4 kids last year, I think they were on 6 different travel teams. Like it's nuts. So I don't have a lot of extra time, but I love track that I can show up once or twice a year and have a lot of good success. Yeah. That might get different as we get older. I know more people join in their 50s, but I really got back into all the throws. I was shot and discus, and then javelin and hammer, and then I thought, well, I can figure out how to do the weight throw. So I kind of throw those in. And had a lot of good coaching, from the competitors on the sidelines. Okay. So I think I won a bunch of golds and silvers and bronzes and various things. What I really want to do, and I haven't done yet, is an outdoor heptathlon. So I know the outdoor pent, I've done that a couple times, and I am just not very good at hurdling. So if you want to say my failures, they've definitely been in hurdling. At the indoor national pent, I had a massive wipeout. That was fun. At the ones that was in Chicago a couple of years ago. So I got to get better at hurdling. I would say that's a failure. It's really hard though at our age. I can't wait to turn 50. I don't know if the hurdles drop down. I think, or no, maybe just the spacing drops. I don't know. I need every advantage I can get, but I would like to say that would be something I really would be a goal, is to get a lot better at the hurdles, because I can win all the throws events, but then if I can't hurdle, and my 800's not that great, it's hard to win. But we'll see. Hopefully it'll come along.
Well, we're going to talk a little bit about your training and how you go about, staying fit enough to enter these and do well in these events. But you had, at least one big setback in your lifetime that you've overcome. Yeah. Before we kind of get into the training aspect of it, tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, that was something you don't expect to hear from someone at my tender young age, but I actually had a severe stroke at the age of 39. So I was very healthy. I was doing CrossFit. I was doing all this. So I actually tweaked my neck very severely. And so it wasn't the kind of stroke you get from high blood pressure or, lifestyle, but it was a neck injury, and the vertebral artery dissection is the kind of stroke they call it. So tweaked that, basically the artery got pinched in between a couple of the vertebrae, got damaged, and a blood clot formed and went to the brain. So I woke up one day and couldn't stand, couldn't see, couldn't anything. I went to the ER. They're like, there's no way she had a stroke. She's too young. She's drunk. She's got terrible vertigo. They had all these things. And finally one doctor was like, listen, we need to do an MRI and a CAT scan. And they're like, yes, she's had a massive stroke. I'm just, thank God I survived. It was a cerebellar stroke. So that's the part of the brain that has to do with balance and motion. So luckily my speech wasn't really affected, like as far as slurring words, but I did have a bad case of aphasia where you try to say one word and another word comes out. Like you want to say the word boat and you say house or dishwasher and like clock or something like that. So that is a little bit of an issue, but the big issue was not being able to walk. You know, I definitely couldn't run. I got a lot of double vision, but I had did some very intensive inpatient rehab. There's a great facility in Chicago called the Shirley Ryan Ability Center. So I was inpatient rehab, you know, with, you know, traumatic brain injury patients and people who had serious strokes as well. But that really got me going again. I had to wear those harnesses you see people wear, like when they're running on the treadmills. You know, after 3 weeks, I was finally able to walk on a treadmill with one of those harnesses. But then I came home and I did outpatient rehab 3 times a week for like 6 months. And I recovered so quickly. And the doctors and the physical therapists were like, "Is this because you're an athlete? Like, thank goodness you just had that ability to heal and to like be disciplined about your PT, and just your body just knows how to work." So I was really fortunate to get back, I would say 99% of my mobility. I have a little temperature issues. Like I don't feel hot and cold so well on my left side. And the worst thing, the thing that affects me when it comes to track is dizziness, like spinning. I can turn around one time and I'll get dizzy. So things like hammer, you know, I was like, I will never be a 2 or a 3 turnaround hammer. But other than that, and honestly, that's a very small price to pay for the blessing of surviving, you know, if I can't do a couple extra turns. But after that stroke, though, I mean, after 2 years, I would say I'm almost back to normal. So that's a good thing.
Well, that's good to hear. So now we want to find out what you're doing physically to, you know, get competitive in these different events. So especially with some of the issues maybe of spinning, or I don't know if it affects you. I've had vertigo issues. I had brain surgery for it and stuff. And so sometimes being upside down and some of those things can be a little weird. So some training positions can be weird. So, you know, fill us in a little bit about, you know, your training regimen now and whether there's an in-season, off-season, cross-training, whatever it is you do to get ready.
I love the word regimen, and I'm sad to say I don't think it applies to my life. Like I watch a lot of the, you know, the people that you've interviewed, and I'm so just in awe of the training and the scheduling and all that. And in my dream world, I would do that and I would work out 4 or 5 times a week. But I've come to realize that the stage I'm in right now, it's like I have to work out when I can, how I can. So that means I have 35 minutes. You know, I'm going to go in the basement and, you know, do a quick full body dumbbell workout. I'm going to, do a quick 2-mile run, you know, over my lunch hour. You know, I would like to usually, you know, I know I have a meet coming up, it's like, okay, I want to be lifting weights 3 times a week and running twice a week. You know, with the multi events, you know, I try to train for the 800 by getting a little bit of endurance. You know, I really admire some of the people online that have the splits and the times that they're aiming for. I'm like, I just go out and I try to run as fast as I can for 2 miles and hope that helps me on the 800. You know, when I have more time in life, I want to get a coach. I would love to have a real good coach. I worked with Sue McDonald. She coached me remotely for a while. I loved her input. It was great. It really helped me. Actually, I did really well at the indoor nationals because of the training I did with her. I just have less time now. So, but eventually I would like to get a regimen like that. When it comes to in-season, off-season, definitely as soon as it gets warm here in Chicago, I'm outdoors in my yard. Luckily, I have a nice big yard, so I can, you know, throw discus and javelin in my yard, which is great. And there's a track. I finally discovered a track that wasn't locked up about, you know, 10 minutes from my house. So I go there and I set up my little scissor hurdles, and I watch some stuff online, try to do hurdle drills at least once a week. You know, I do it on Sundays when nobody's at the track. So like one day a week when I'm in season, try to get there. And then off season, it's just a mix of weightlifting and just running on my treadmill in the basement.
Especially with a family of 4 children, how do you manage your diet, nutrition? Do you do anything specific, or is it just, you know, kind of go with the flow like you do with your training?
Yeah. So I would say we definitely try to eat pretty clean in the house. I have tried to instill that, you know, to my daughters. Like we need to just be a little bit mindful of what they eat. I actually went through a period about 2 or 3 years where I tracked macros complete, and I loved it. I got my kitchen scale, I weighed everything, and that worked really well for me. Like that when I was at my most serious at track field, and I would really love to get back to that. In fact, I think I'm going to, and I'm thinking more about doing more events next year. So, but basically high protein and then just a lot of vegetables and very simple carbs like potatoes, rice. We don't do fancy like casseroles or any of that stuff. It's really clean eating, high protein. And yeah, just trying to fit in. I tried it. That's my one goal is I count protein grams, and then the rest of the stuff, if it happens, great. But I want to make sure I get in, my protein goal per day. So, and that seems to have worked pretty well.
And what is your primary resource for protein? So is it meat? Is it some plant-based? Is it supplements? How do you do?
Yeah, I grew up on a beef farm, so I could eat red meat like 3 times a day and be happy. We've got half a steer in the freezer in the garage. But I eat red meat definitely, at least 3 times a week. And other than that, a lot of chicken and turkey. We love fish here too, and the kids actually all like fish, so we try to do that. So all animal based. I actually tolerate dairy really well also. So if I'm like running, I didn't eat that much today. I like those little protein drinks that are like 30 grams of protein, so those seem to work real well for me. I know people say maybe don't eat dairy, but it's working for me so far.
You mentioned a little bit about Rachel Guest, and then, we had talked earlier a little bit about your dad. Tell us a little bit about these folks that inspired you both, in your younger days and then now in the Masters realm.
Mm-hmm. Well, definitely growing up, it was my dad. He's a farmer from Iowa, so, not a lot of opportunities for like organized sports, but he's just always been super athletic and active. He's ridden his bicycle across the United States like 3 times. I think he did it most recently at like the age of 78, probably. We finally convinced him to get an e-bike. Like the Rockies are really big, so he was a huge influence also. And then, when it comes to athletics in general, Rachel, I started following her, and actually Angela Hersner too. I just saw her video, but from the beginning, I've just really admired these women that can accomplish so much and have these clear-cut goals and do what they do. So, what I like to look at, all different sports, and, when I'm working out, I literally like to watch other people doing sports. Like that's motivating for me. So, there's people in volleyball I'm inspired by, football players, track athletes. I just love track athletes like Anna Hall and Annie Coons, the great heptathletes that are there now. They're all super motivating, even though it's so far outside of where I'm at as a performer. Just watching them helps me get through, whatever little workout I'm doing.
At 48, you're kind of in that thick of things like you talked about earlier with your training, having to maneuver it around, 4 kids, career, all that kind of stuff. Two-part question, I guess. One, you hit on it some before, but how do you really fit all that in? And then, what would you suggest for others kind of in the range that you're at to be able to keep it going? Now, you said that you want to be able to maybe put a little more focus on it as you get older, but what I have found with many of the folks I interview in their 50s, 60s, 70s is that stage of 30s, 40s, maybe early 50s with what you have going on is where they completely fell off the wagon. And then they wish that they would have at least just kept going, doing something. So, what are your thoughts and advice, and how do you do that?
Yeah. So for me, I'm a very visual person. So I like to track things visually. We have a very small gym in the basement, and I have those big wall size calendars, right? And every day for the entire year, I have those up like, 3 months in a row from the ceiling to the floor, and I write down when I work out, so, and I have them taped up. What are we in now? I just finished August. So I can, every time I get down there, I can see for the last 8 months, like, okay, like I haven't done anything, this kind of workout for 2 weeks or 3 weeks. So for me, seeing visual reminders, I have something next to my coffee machine every morning, kind of reminding me some of the habits I want to have. I read a book called Atomic Habits that just was like mind-blowing for me. I absolutely loved it. So I started doing the habit tracker, because it's, especially in athletics, nothing's overnight, right? So you have to have these good habits. So I started doing those habit trackers, and they really are effective for me. So even though, nobody's going to be perfect, especially with the chaos of this, knowing that, okay, I got to do something this week, even if it's just, going out for a 20 or 30-minute walk, that sort of thing. So for me, visually tracking things is how I keep on track as much as possible. It's a good motivator for me. I don't like to have blank weeks on my big wall calendars. And I want to be able to look back at the end of the year and be like, look at everything I did. You know, it's kind of fun. And my kids, sometimes they'll go down there and they'll have written little motivational things for me.
Yeah.
So it's nice. They can participate. And then, yeah, I definitely, it's funny you say about people in their 50s and 60s. I look back now, it's like, I should have worked harder in my 20s, my 30s, maybe, you know, like I feel bad. Maybe a year or two went by there that I wasn't super intense with it, but we just have to, we are where we are. You know, we cannot change the past. I'm all about looking forward. I'm all about like, all right, just what's next? What's next? You know, I like the idea of having a goal, something to work for. For me though, it's like, you know, okay, next year's nationals is really far off, you know, and I already know I can't go to indoor nationals in Albuquerque because it's during, you know, a week where I have a super big sales meeting I have to go to. So I need to find another goal, right? And I don't want it to be too far off. I have this pipe dream. I don't know if it's possible. I would love to set a record of some sort. I don't know. I have to pick one thing and get super focused on it. But maybe that could be something I could aim for as well. But having that goal to reach for, I think, is key for keeping us all moving.
All right, we're going to take a couple minutes and get to know a little bit more about you.
Okay.
So I'm going to ask you some kind of rapid fire questions and see where we go with this. So
all right,
this one, we'll start with kind of a two-part question. One, what has been your like favorite vacation / destination that you've gone on? And then is there one that is like, you know, the dream vacation destination that you'd like to go to someday?
All right, so favorite one is really hard. That I would think the coolest one I did is I took my 16-year-old daughter on a trip to Japan for like 12 days, and just her and I, and it was neat because it was her and I, and it was in Japan, and it was amazing. But probably the coolest one was a whitewater rafting trip in Idaho. We were on the Snake River in Hell's Canyon, the whole family roughing it. You know, no electricity or anything for almost a week. So that was awesome. Those are probably my two coolest ones. And I really want to go to Argentina. That's on my husband and I's dream thing. Eventually we'll get there, we say.
So what is it about Argentina in particular? Anything?
Neither of us have ever been there, so we wanted to do something we'd never been, and just the idea of you've got, you know, Patagonia, then you've got Buenos Aires. You could, if you're there for long enough, which we want to be, there's such a wide variety of experiences you could do. I like its idea of kind of a European city, but in South America.
All right, so you say that you eat pretty clean generally, but when it's time to indulge, what is your go-to?
That's fine. My favorite meal is steak, which is supposedly like pretty healthy, right? But I would smother it in all sorts of butter sauce, béarnaise sauce, right? And with all the creamy condiments and mashed potatoes, followed by a bowl of ice cream this big. Like that would be my ideal meal for sure. I could make just the ice cream my meal probably if I had the wherewithal.
So what's your favorite ice cream flavor?
So boring, but really good vanilla with chocolate sauce. I think it's just so perfect. If I'm feeling adventurous, we'll do like the double chocolate Dutch or whatever, like chocolate brownie inside the chocolate ice cream, but good old vanilla, man.
If you've got a minute to just chill out, you know, everybody's maybe the husband's taking the kids to the fair or something to, you know, to Six Flags there in Chicago.
Yep.
And you got a minute to yourself. Is it going to be a book, a movie, or a podcast?
Oh, a book. Yeah, I love my books. So I read a lot of science fiction, actually. So I'm really into that. So if I can ever curl up with a good one of those, that would definitely be my go-to.
Do you have one or two favorites?
Yeah, right. I've been reading the Red Rising series. I like military, obviously having been in the military, but this is a futuristic military set in space. And I also love space. So it's like, it's absolutely perfect. And there's 6 books in the series. I like really long series. They take a while to get through. So yeah, that's currently what I'm actually on it for the second time. I like to reread books just in case I miss something the first time.
All right. Well, awesome. Last one. What's your favorite color?
Green. Nice shirt, by the way.
Gonna say nice NUI green shirt.
I love it.
Any particular reason in green?
No, I don't. Maybe it's growing up in the country, green fields of corn outside my window every day for the first 18 years, green pastures, all that good stuff. But it's a beautiful color.
I did say last one, but I do have a different one. So, you know, you grew up in Iowa, you know, and I'm from Wisconsin, you know, we're called the flyover states, right?
Yeah.
So what's one or two things you want to let the world know about Iowa?
Iowa is the most beautiful state there is. I tell you what, everyone thinks it's flat and boring. That's Kansas and Nebraska. Iowa is stunning. There's green rolling hills, you know, get off of Interstate 80. That's what I would say. Do not judge Iowa by what you see from Interstate 80. Head south a little bit, head northeast up to Galena or Dubuque, actually. Like those are beautiful for sure. So a lot to see there.
All right. I like it. Okay. Kelley, thanks so much for joining us today to let us know what makes you an autumn athlete that's not done yet. I'd like to wrap up by giving you the floor to just give us some final thoughts.
I would say that my favorite quote ever is comparison is the thief of joy. And I think that especially as a master's athlete, that's very, very apropos for me. I enjoy so much being out there, moving, doing what I can. If I start to look at all the world record holders and superstars and all that and get down on myself, I really have to just kick myself in the pants to just be so grateful. Like I have a lot of faith. I thank God every day that I'm able to still do all these athletics. And just realize it's just what a gift we have to be able to be here and to be an athlete and to be doing it as we age gracefully. So I hope to always carry that gratitude for me, and no matter what sport I happen to be doing.
Well, there you go, folks. Kelley Reinfelds. She is definitely an autumn athlete that's not done yet. Remember, keep moving, set your own goals, and train hard to achieve them. Thanks so much for watching, and we will see you next time.